This is an informal chat about shops and shop culture over a cup of coffee. And today's coffee is, again, Cactus Squatch by Black Rifle Coffee Company. It's their super dark roast. It's very good, a very good way to kick off your morning, especially if you're having a tough Monday like today after a nice weekend. So please check them out and give them a look. They are very, very good coffee. Now, today, if you guys can see behind me, we are once again in the Lafayette EV Club garage. Our machine shop, my usual backdrop, is being used on just about every piece of equipment's on right now. So it would be chaos to try to film in there. So a big thank you to Ben Franco, Maria Romashenko, John Doyle, and all of the team for giving me a place to broadcast once again today. We should be back in the shop again next week. So, speaking of Lafayette, if you or someone you know has a high schooler looking for a college to put them ahead of the pack when it comes to getting a job in this tough market, Lafayette boasts an unparalleled curriculum, both in our liberal arts and our very well, highly regarded engineering program. So, again, if you need a place to go, we invite you to say Cur Non or why not and join us here at Lafayette Engineering. So let's sink our teeth into our first cut today. A little pun on sawing. Today we start off our series on saws and sawing, and so we have a very highly regarded guest for our first guest this month, Bradley Kuchenbacher of Scotchman Industries. Just a little point, and I'm sure I'll mention this in the show, is Scotchman has supplied, or we bought, two legacy machines from them many years ago that we still use to this day to show you just how good of a piece of equipment they are. So, with that, let's dive right in. Brad, thank you again for joining us. Now, with all my guests, I like to start off with a brief backstory. Who are you? What is your title with your company, and what do you do for them?
Yeah, you bet. Sure. Thanks, Robert. Again, my name is Bradley. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat there, but Bradley Kuchenbecker. Been with Scotchman Industries here for just about 30 years now. It's crazy how time flies. I started here at Scotchman in the shop, actually running a mill, and then moved to the lathe department. Then I moved to actually building the machines as far as our cold saws and our iron workers as well. Then I went on the road, to train our reps, that sort of deal. And now I'm back in the office pretty much full time as the national sales manager here at Scotchman Industries.
Excellent. So you had mentioned an iron worker. That is one of the pieces of equipment we have. We have an older iron worker and we have an older horizontal bandsaw. I don't know the exact model, but like I said, it's served us very well for all these years, and it continues to do so. Now, shameless plug for your employer. Who is Scotchman Industries? What is their specialty? Their bread and butter. Please share all of Scotchman's legacy, the all-American manufacturing. I spoke with Kyle. I can't remember his last name. I spoke with your marketing guy, Kyle, and he just raved about your company. So please continue with that.
Yeah, no, we're a South Dakota company. We're located in western South Dakota, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But anyways, this is our 60th year in business, which we're extremely proud of, and it's always been based right here in Phillips, South Dakota. Our founder, Art Crutch is his name, started off just with a small little one person, almost like in his garage, um, repair shop. He would repair farm equipment, implements, tractors, anything mechanical. Long story short, he came across the idea of a hydraulic iron worker. And back in those days, hydraulics it was first really getting big. Um, so we were the first ones to mass produce the hydraulic iron worker that the world knows today. And now, of course, there's many competitors out there. But we're proud to say we were the very first inventor of the hydraulic iron worker. So we've been doing that, been doing this a long time. And of course, as 60 years goes by, we have ventured off into the sawing market as well. We've been building our own cold saws right here in Phillips, South Dakota for 37 years. And we are the only American-made cold saw. There's of course many cold saw competitors of ours out there, but there's only one that's made in the United States, actually fully made, produced in the United States, and that's the Scotchman circular cold saw. So we're very proud of that as well. And we have ventured out into, I see that car frame behind you there, Robert. We now have pipe notchers, whether it's a mechanical pipe notcher or an abrasive pipe notcher to make those frames, to fish mouth your tubing and whatnot, to put it all together. We're constantly coming up with new products in our research and development area. We have recently just come out with what we call a DBS3 dual belt sander. It's a very unique sander. You can take two belts on it. You can have a polishing belt and a grit belt for taking material off. But we're also coming up with a unistrut shear, an automated unistrut shear that'll be hitting the market, I would say, in the next 3 to 6 months after it gets through the test. It's in the testing phase right now. But right here at Scotchman, we have about 80 employees in house. We have about 20 outside sales representatives. So, a company of about 100 people, nationwide, but it's all located here in Western South Dakota. We got a great labor force here. We don't have the volume or the numbers, but a lot of our guys here in the office and in the shop, grew up in the farming, ranching background, and just they come to work ready to work on time. We just got a great culture here at Scotchman Industries, out in the middle of nowhere.
And when I was talking to Kyle, he parroted a lot of what you said, and being all American and all self-contained, which is something you just don't see anymore. A lot of people bring in components and they'll manufacture or they'll assemble in America with global parts, but you guys do it all, which is one of the big bonuses for you. So you had mentioned that you are getting into, or you have, pipe notchers. So I will say to the higher ups here at Lafayette, if we ever need to look into a new way to do our fish mounting or pipe notching, we should go back to Scotchman again. That'd be a huge bonus for us. Now, another topic I really love covering is the custom solution market. So, what is Scotchman's approach to handling customer solutions? If you have somebody come to you and say, I have XY problem, and something that you guys make or something you could make could solve it. What is Scotchman's approach?
You bet. The custom market, there is no standard anymore. There used to be, we have an iron worker, we have a cold saw, we have these tools that can go with it, but it just seems like the automation and the customization, it touches almost every order that comes through here at Scotchman. So I'm going to say probably 25 years ago, we really got into the custom side of things and dedicated a team here at Scotchman specifically to work on custom solutions for people. But just a couple examples, the automation side on the sawing systems is probably larger than it is for an iron worker. So I'll kind of hit on the sawing side of it, but you take your traditional, standalone cold saw, which I believe you have there in your facility. It may have an in-feed conveyor and an out-feed conveyor, but then we had customers that wanted that same sawing accuracy that you get with a cold saw, but they want an auto feed system on it. So we have two styles of automated feeding systems on our cold saws. We have what's called a hitch feed automatic. So it's got two vices. One vice is always holding the material and clamping and shuttling it forward, so it's extremely accurate. But that's a system where it'll automatically feed one bar, and then your operator has to put another bar into the saw when that one is completed. So we went one step further than that. Now we have what we call a roller feed automatic. So when that tube is processed and finished in the saw automatically loads itself. So that's kind of the progression step on the automated side. Now we have a bundle loader that can feed the supply table, which the supply table feeds the saw. So it's really three different scenarios, but you can literally drop a whole bundle of steel in, cut the straps, hit the start button, and we don't encourage lights out cutting, but your operator definitely doesn't have to be standing there monitoring the saw at all times. So it's a huge cost savings to companies that are producing a lot of parts. Now, we've been doing that for 30 plus years, I would say. Um, we have taken it another step further. We have customers that come to us that process, let's say, conduit or unistrut if they're going to build a new facility. Um, in the old days, and when I say old days, I mean I'm only talking like 10 years ago. It's amazing how fast this has gone.
Oh
But in
yeah.
the old days, the saw operator would get a cut list. He might have 50 sheets of paper, and he needs to cut this 1 inch tubing. He needs 1,000 of them at 1 inch, and he needs 3,000 of them at 9 inches, and so forth. And he would have to set the saw for every different cut length. Now you can put your cut length into the computer. The computer Bluetooths to the saw, so all of your cut lists are in that saw already. So your operator doesn't have to manage or handle any of that. Um, your shop foreman or engineer can actually program the saw from an engineering office, and all the operator has to do is just make sure the materials in the saw. So it can basically be run remotely as well. But in that stage where we cut hundreds of thousands of pieces, then our customers said, well, we would like the either a barcode or part number or piece number put on that part when it comes out. So now we have a printing system that as the saw is spitting these parts out, we are printing the part number or a barcode on that individual part. So and then the saw also sorts it into different bins of where to unload it. So when the operators get done with it, they take it out into the field. The field guys that are working with it, every single piece is already marked, so they know where it goes in the facility. So that's just kind of a progression, on the sawing side of things that has become extremely popular, especially since COVID, Robert. It just seems like it's getting harder and harder to find real strong dedicated saw operators. So this is a system uh, where I'm not going to say it eliminates the operator, but very, very minimal use of an operator. It's all computer controlled, other than the actual setting the material into the saw.
So you covered the automation point I was going to bring up, but that is way beyond anything I've ever thought about sawing. And a big part of this month's series is trying to bring much more awareness to things just like this. I've said it in my social media posts, and I've said it in my lead up to today's episode. And even for those listening and watching, I have an accompanying article in Cutting Tool Engineering magazine for March about sawing. We actually have pictures of your machine in there, and how it's a very often overlooked and really taken for granted process for taking raw stock and getting it to either a machinable blank or in the case of like this race car, the one I joined outside of here is um, from stock to finished part. So another thing I wanted to cover a little bit more, and this I actually learned this from you and Kyle, is the naming of process. So I was always under the impression cold saw was that abrasive chop saw, and I may have misquoted that, but if you could please dig into a little bit what a cold saw is for those that don't know, like myself.
Sure. Yep. No, and that's where cold sawing kind of got into the market. In the I'm going to say the turn of the first century or last century, abrasive sawing was the way most people parted their pieces. An abrasive wheel is just sandpaper in a wheel, basically, and it actually burns through the material, and you got tons of dust and sparks, and your piece is not very accurate. A cold saw runs at a much slower RPM. So when I say slower RPM, an abrasive saw runs at 3,000 to 4,000 RPM.
Yes.
A cold saw runs at 22 RPM. That's the most ideal RPM. You
22.
22 RPMs. I mean, you can physically watch the blade move, and the way the blade is manufactured, which we also do here at Scotchman. We put a certain rake on the tooth, and it basically acts like a milling cutter. So it takes a chip out of the material, And the reason they call them cold saws, they kind of got this, they coined that name, many, many years ago, versus abrasive cutting where your part is hot and I mean, it'll burn you. A cold saw literally takes a chip out and all the heat comes out in that chip. So there's no distortion on the material, which you do get with an abrasive saw, and it's extremely accurate. And you can put your hand on it right away. The part is cold to the touch. You can take a you know 2-inch solid tool steel and cut through it in 28 seconds, and it's extremely cold. And the accuracy of a cold saw, the way the blade is designed and how rigid it is, um, we guarantee plus or minus 2 thousandths for diameter inch and squareness.
For
So
sawing.
for sawing, yeah,
Wow. You've ever heard that old joke, carpenter's tolerances plus or minus a quarter inch?
right, yeah,
That's all I've ever thought of, and I'm as guilty as anybody. It's all I've ever thought of sawing. But a great example. I don't know if you guys ever worked with that company 80/20.
I'm sure we have. It doesn't sound familiar right off the top, but
Okay. For all those in the engineering world too, 80/20 is a godsend. It's an infinitely adjustable aluminum extrusion stuff, and they offer a service that if you send them your lengths, and even if you want bevels, angles, whatever, they'll chop it right there at their facility for a tiny fee. And just like Bradley said, it is dead on. It is flat. It is cold. There's almost no burr. It's excellent. So cold sawing is a huge bonus. So to all those listening, I like I just admitted I had the misnomer. I thought cold sawing was that abrasive chop saw. So
and
thank
that's
you.
not
Next,
to
I want to cover
go ahead,
is
Rob.
your biggest challenge. So if you're not allowed to name drop, I get it. There's a lot of people that have proprietary information, but was there a project that somebody came to you or Scotchman and said, you know, and then they presented their problem, but it was a huge challenge and it tested your skills. Was there one that you had like that?
Yeah, we did have one recently, and I won't say the company's name, but they were tasked with one of the manufacturers, installers of the border wall down south,
Okay.
uh, and they needed to process large, huge volumes of angle iron, and this happens to be an iron worker application, but we took some of our sawing knowledge in our engineering department, and we basically added the same feeding system onto an iron worker. It's our FI 85 iron worker, extremely robust, but this customer was having to take a V notch out of this 4x4 by half inch angle iron every 2 feet. So we designed a feeding system and a guide system and a mist system so we could lubricate that blade after every cut. But now it processes a 40-foot piece of 4x4 by half inch steel, aluminum, or not aluminum, steel angle iron. I'm sorry, Robert. And every 2 feet, it cycles the machine to take a V out of it, and that's what the tubes of the border wall fit into. And when I say mass production, I mean that machine ran. I'm going to say at least 2 shifts, if not 3 shifts a day, and and then of course it got shut down, and now it's back up and running. But that machine's just been a workhorse for us. But we automated an iron worker for their needs to reach the volume that they needed, and it was a really neat project to work on.
So a question that just popped up in my mind, and I like to pick your brain about it a little bit. Is there a I'm sure you guys have it. Is there a range of sizes and different types of machinery that you have? So you and I were talking right before we went live. Is that this is here at Lafayette? This is a prototype shop. We might get 1 to 10 of something or 1 to 50 of something, and then we'll never see the job again. But in bigger shops that I've worked in, is that one saw will cut the same piece day in and day out. Do you guys have a range for high mix, low volume, and then low mix, high volume?
We do, and again on the customization side, we you tell us what you want to do, and we will build a saw for you. So we obviously have our standard models that are on our website at Scotchman.com or in our catalogs. But we take those standard models depending on what your specific needs are. It could be a low volume type of deal or a high volume type of deal, or an angle master. We have a saw called an angle master. Everybody knows that when you're cutting angles, it's really, really hard to get that first angle correct. You usually have to cut it 2 or 3 times to get it dead on.
Yep.
We have a software system where you plug in, 37 inches from point A to point B, 45 degrees. The saw will cut 45 degrees, cycle the material, rotate its head, cut the other 45 degrees. So it's right on every single time. And it doesn't have to be 45. I mean, if you're making an octagon window frame out of a piece of extrusion, it can figure that out for you too. So as far as cost savings, when you do it the first time, it's right the first time instead of the fifth time.
Whoa.
But
That's
yes, on the sawing side, we have standard models, but we take those standard models and we build them to whatever your needs are. And that's the nice thing about being an American manufacturer. We don't have to wait 6 to 12 weeks to get components in or parts in or something from overseas. Um, we have our engineering department, we have our heat treat department, we have a blackening department, and obviously a paint booth. We have lasers and we have press brakes and tons of mills and lathes and if our engineers can draw it up and think it up, we can build it.
Oh man! So as a service to whoever my guest is each week I actually put the direct link to your website right in the video description. So those of you watching and listening, if you want to, I would suggest you give Scotchman a look. Their link is right in the video description. Lastly, I like to, as a courtesy to the guest for taking time to come on, I'm going to open the stage right to you. Are there any new developments in your machinery or your tooling that you're at liberty to announce or share? Anything. I understand that some companies have like 6 month cycles where they'll bring out new things, but if there's anything you guys want to get out there and really really get ahead on, please, now's the time.
You bet, absolutely. Thanks, Robert. No, again, we're constantly building new products, and that stem from the customers. The customers' feedback is how we generate a lot of our projects that we have here. One nice thing, Lafayette, for an example, a lot of high schools, technical schools, 4-year colleges, in their trade, in their shop, they do a lot of welding, uh, and they have to shear a lot of flat plate to make what we call coupons.
Mm-hmm.
Coupons get welded together. So we have actually come up with a coupon bender. So once you weld that coupon together, you have to bend it, and then that's your go or no go as far as your pass or fail. As a student. So we are coming up with a machine right now. It's going to be our Shearmaster 310. We have a Shearmaster 610 right now, which is really too big for most of our schools' use. We do sell a lot of them to schools, but we're going to try to make a mini version of that and couple it with a coupon bender. So for processing all your flat plate, for all the coupons for your students to practice on, is going to be a system that it's much faster and much easier than the way that most people are working with it right now. So that's kind of the biggest thing right now. Again, we're coming up with a unistrut shear that's in the testing phase right now. That's going to be a big hitter. In the market where big contractors that are building big buildings are going to be able to use, and it'll have an automated feeder on it as well. But we're constantly looking at new projects, and if you have any ideas, give us a holler and we'll run with it and see what we can do.
So, without giving up any ghosts, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around this. All the times I've ever cut unistrut, I've listened to a saw just scream as like one or two teeth are biting into that sheet metal at a time. But are you at liberty to discuss how Scotchman does that without crushing or destroying the piece of unistrut?
Sure. Yeah, we make custom blades, and again with unistruts, you have two open legs, and whenever you're sawing open legs, those legs can vibrate, and that's the sound that you're hearing. So shearing it is much faster, and you don't hardly even hear the piece being processed. It's just a little snap. But the way that we do that is we make custom blades that fit around every profile of Unistrut. So it's a very tight tolerance blade that we have to EDM, made out of tool steel, and then obviously hardened. But you basically have two blades. You feed your material through, and our Unistrut here is going to have an automatic feeding system as well that you can add to it. You don't have to, but it'll be available. But as that material gets fed through there, wherever, as soon as it hits the stop and tells it to cycle or your foot pedal, those two blades make just a really quick action like that and shears it off instead of the agonizing noise of sawing the instrument.
Oh, like I said, I can't. We have electricians in our trade shop that constantly need custom pieces of Unistrut cut, and they just don't have an abrasive saw. They don't have anything to do that on the site, so they'll usually swing by our shop to ask us for help. And I cannot tell you how many times I've had to put on hearing protection just to get through one or two pieces. It's excruciating. It's nails on a chalkboard would be a melody compared to some of that noise. So.
Correct.
Well, that wraps up all the prompts and questions I had. Brad, once again, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to, out of your busy day and a busy Monday, I'm sure, to come on and represent Scotchman so well. So thank you again. And I think that just about does it for the interview. So I'll say the same line I always say: catch us again next time, next week, or not the same time. We'll be back to our 8 o'clock broadcast time next week. We should be back in the shop as well. May your only daily grind be the coffee in your mug. Thanks again, and thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next week. Brad, have a wonderful day.
You bet. Thanks, Robert.